The park was about 2 blocks square, with a fountain in the middle and small swimming pool for little kids. The pool was empty now in the fall, but the fountain was going merrily. Tall elm trees made the park shadowy and dark and would have gotten a good hangout, but we preferred our vacant lot, and the shepherd's outfit liked the alley down by the tracks, so the park was left for lovers and little kids. Nobody was around about 2:30 in the morning, and a good place to relax and cool off. I couldn't have gotten much cooler without turning into a popsicle. Johnny snapped up his jean jacket and flipped up the collar. "Ain't you about to freeze to death, Pony?" "You ain't a woofin'," I said, rubbing my bare arms between drags of the cigarette. I started to say something about the film and the ice developing on the outer edge of the fountain when a sudden blast from a car horn made us both jump. The blue Mustang was circling the park slowly. Johnny swore under his breath, and I muttered, "What do they want? This isn't their territory. What are the Socias doing this far east?" Johnny shook his head. "I don't know, but I bet they're looking for us. We picked up their girls." "Oh, glory," I said with a groan. "This is about all the top off a perfect night." I took one last drag of my weed and ground the stub under my heel. "Want to run for it?" "It's too late," Johnny said. "Here they come. 5 Socias coming straight at us. The way they were staggering, I figured they were really pickled." That scared me. A cool, deadly bluff could sometimes shake them off, but it was not going to be outnumbered when you're 5-2 and we're drunk. Johnny's hand went to his back pocket. I remembered his switchblade. I wished for a broken bottle, and I sure show them how I could use it if I had to. Johnny was scared to death. I mean it. He was white as a ghost, and his eyes were wild looking, and eyes of an animal in a trap. He backed to us against We backed against the fountain, and the Socias surrounded us. They smelled so heavily of whiskey and English leather, I almost choked. I wished desperately that Derry and Soda would come around hunting for me. The 4 of us could handle them easily, but no one was around, and I knew Johnny and I were going to have to fight it out alone. Johnny was had a blank, tough look on his face, and you have to know him to see the panic in his eyes. I stared at the Socias coolly. Maybe they could scare us to death, but we never let them have the satisfaction of knowing it. It was Randy and Bob and 3 other Socias. They were recognizing us. I knew Johnny recognized them. I was watching as he watched the moonlight glint off of Bob's rings and huge eyes. "Hey, what do you know?" Bob said a little unsteadily. "Here's the little greasers that picked up our girls." "Hey, greasers, you're out of your territory," Johnny warned with a low voice. "You better watch it." Randy swore at us as they stepped closer. Bob was eyeing Johnny. "No, pal, you're the ones that better watch. Next time you're next time you want to pick up abroad, pick up your own kind, dirt." I was getting mad. I was hating them enough lose my head. "You know what a greaser is?" Bob asked. "White trash, long hair." I felt the blood draining from my face. I had been cussed out and sworn at, but it never hit me when I like it did. Johnny Cake made a kind of gasp, and his eyes were smoldering. "You know what a Soc is?" I said with my voice shaking with rage. "White trash with Mustangs and Madras." And then, because I couldn't think of anything bad enough to call them, I spat at them. Bob shook his head, smiled slowly. "You could use a bath greaser and a good working over, I bet you, and I got all night to do it. Give the kid a bath, David." I ducked and tried to run for it, but the Soch caught my arm and twisted it. I fought. I twisted behind my back, and I shoved my face into the fountain. I fought, but the head was back and the neck was strong, and the hand on the back of my neck was strong, and I had to hold my breath. "I'm dying," I thought as I wondered what happened to Johnny. I couldn't hold my breath any longer. I fought again desperately, but only sucked in water. "I'm drowning," I thought. They've gone too far. A red haze filled my mind, and I slowly relaxed. Next thing I knew, I was lying on the pavement behind the fountain, coughing water and gasping. I lay there weakly, breathing in air and spitting out water. The wind blasted through my soaked sweatshirt and dripping hair. My teeth chattered uneasily. unceasingly, and I couldn't stop them. I finally pushed myself up and leaned back against the fountain and the water running down my face. Then I saw Johnny. He was sitting next to me, one elbow on his knee, and is staring straight ahead. He was a strange greenish white, and his eyes were huger than I'd ever seen them. I killed him, he said slowly. I killed that boy. Bob, the handsome Soch that was lying in the moonlight, doubled up and still. The dark pool was growing from him, spreading slowly over the blue-white cement. I looked at Johnny's hand. He was clutching a switchblade, and it was dark to the hilt. My stomach gave a violent jolt, and my blood turned icy. Johnny, I managed to say, fighting in dizziness, I think I'm going to be sick. Go ahead, he said in the same steady voice. I won't look at you. I turned my head, and I was quietly sick for a moment. Then I leaned back and I closed my eyes, and so I wouldn't see Bob lying there. This can't be happening. This can't be happening. This can't be. You really killed him, huh, Johnny? Yeah. His voice quavered slightly. I had to. They were drowning you, Pony. They might have killed you. And they had a blade. They were going to beat me up, like I swallowed, like they did before. Johnny was quiet for a moment. Yeah, he said, like they did before. Johnny told me what had happened. They ran when I stabbed him. They all ran. A panic was rising in me as I listened to Johnny's quiet voice go on and on. Johnny, I nearly screamed, what are we going to do? They put you in an electric chair for killing people? I was shaking. I want a cigarette. I want a cigarette. I want a cigarette. We had smoked our last pack. I'm scared, Johnny. What are we going to do? Johnny jumped up and dragged me up in my sweatshirt. He shook me. Calm down, Pony Boy. Get a hold of yourself. I had realized I was screaming. I shook loose. Okay, I said. What? I'm okay now. Johnny looked around, slapping his pockets nervously. We got to get out of here. Get somewhere. Run away. The police will be here soon. I was trembling, and it wasn't all cold. Wasn't from all the cold. But Johnny except for his hands were twitching, looked as cool as Derry ever had. We'll need money and maybe a gun and a plan. Money, maybe a gun, a plan. What in the world would we get those things? Daly, Johnny said with finality. Daly will get us out of here. I heaved a sigh. Why hadn't I thought of that? But I never thought of anything. Dallas Winson could do anything. Where can we find him? I think he's at Buck Merrill's place, the party over there tonight. Daly said something about it this afternoon. Buck Merrill was Dallas's rodeo partner and the one who got Dallas's job as a jockey for the Slash J Buck. Raised a few quarter horses, made most of his money on fixed races and a little bootlegging. I was under strict orders from Derry and Soda not to get caught within 10 miles of this place, which was dandy for me. I didn't like Buck Merrill. He was a tall, lanky cowboy with blonde hair and buck teeth, or at least he used to be buck tooth before his front two knocked out in a fight. He was out of it. He dug Hank Williams. How gross can you get? Buck answered the door when we knocked, and a roar of cheap music came with him. The clink of glasses, loud, rough laughter, female giggles, and Hank Williams. I scraped together my raw nerves like sandpaper. A can of beer in one hand, a Buck glared down at us. What do you want? Daly, Johnny gulped, looking back over his shoulder. We gotta see Daly. He's busy, Buck snapped, but someone in the living room yelled, "Hi-ya!" and "Yee-haw!" Sounded that almost made my nerves snap. Tell him it's Pony Boy and Johnny, he commanded. I know, Buck. I know, Buck. And the only way to get him his nerves, get anything from him was to bully him. I guess that's why Daly could handle him so easily. Although Buck was in his mid-20s and Daly was 17, he'll come. Buck glared at me for a second, then stumbled off. He was pretty well crooked, which made me apprehensive. If Daly was drunk and in a dangerous mood. He appeared in a few minutes, clad only in a pair of low-cut blue jeans, scratching his hair on his chest. He was sober enough, and that surprised me. Maybe he hadn't been there long. Okay, kids, what do you need from me? As Johnny told him the story, I studied Daly, trying to figure out what there was tough-looking hood that a girl like Cherry Valance could love. Tow-headed and shifty-eyed, Daly anything but handsome. Yet in his face he had a character, pride, and savage defiance of the world. He could never love Cherry Valance back. It would be a miracle if Daly loved anything. The fight for self-preservation had hardened him beyond caring. He didn't bat an eye when Johnny told him what had happened. He only grinned and said, "Good for you," when Johnny told him he had knifed the Stoche. Finally, Johnny finished. "We figured out we could get anyone. I'm sorry to get you away from your party." "Oh, shoot, kid." Daly glanced contemptuously over his shoulder. "I was in the bedroom." He suddenly stared at me. "Glory, but your ears can get red, pony boy." I was remembering what usually happened on the bedrooms at Buck's parties. Then Daly grinned at me in amusement realization. "It wasn't anything like that, kid. I was asleep, or trying to be, with all this racket. Hank Williams." He rolled his eyes and added a few adjectives after Hank Williams. "Me and Shepard had a run-in, and I cracked some ribs. I just needed a place to lay low." He rubbed his side ruefully. "Old Tim can sure pack a punch. He won't be able to see out of an eye for a week." He looked over at us for inside. "Wait a second and I'll see what I can do about this mess." Then he took a good look at me. "Pony boy, you're all wet." "Yes," I stammered through my chattering teeth. "Glory, hallelujah." He opened the screen door and pulled me in, motioning for Johnny to follow. "You'll die of pneumonia before the cops ever get you." He half dragged me into the empty bedroom, swearing at me all the way. "Get that shirt off." He threw a towel at me. "Dry off and wait here. At least Johnny will get his jean jacket. You ought to know better than to run away in just a sweatshirt, and a wet one at that. Don't you ever use your head?" He sounded so much like Derry that I stared at him. He didn't notice and left us sitting on the bed. Johnny lay back on it. Wish I had me a weed. My knees were shaking and I was finishing off drying and sitting in my jeans. Daly appeared after a minute. He carefully shut the door. "Here," he handed us a gun and a roll of bills. "The gun's loaded, for Pete's sake, Johnny. Don't point the thing at me. Here's $50. That's all I could get out of Merrill tonight. He's blowing his loot from his last race." You might have thought Daly who'd fixed those races for Buck being a jockey and all, but it wasn't. The last guy to suggest it lost 3 teeth. It's the truth. Daly rode ponies honestly, and did his best to win. And it's the only thing Daly did honestly. "Pony, do Derry and Soda Pop know about this?" I shook my head. Daly sighed. "Boy, howdy, I ain't itching to tell Derry to get his head busted and get my head busted." "Then don't tell him," I said. "I hate to worry Soda Pop, and would have liked to let him know I gotten in this so far." But I didn't care if Derry worried himself gray-headed. I was too tired to tell myself I was being mean and unreasonable. I convinced myself it wouldn't be fair to Derry to make Daly tell him. Derry would beat him to death for giving us money and a gun and getting us out of town. Here, Daly handed me a shirt in about 6 million sizes too big. "It's Buck's, and if you ain't and you ain't him, ain't exactly the same size, but it's dry." He handed me a warm brown jacket and yellow sheep wool lining. "Get cold where you're going, and can't wish being loaded down with blankets." I started buttoning up the shirt. It swallowed me. Hop of 3:15 freight to Windricksville, Daly instructed. "There's an old abandoned church on the top of J Mountain. There's a pump in the back, so don't worry about water. Buy a week's supply of food as soon as you get there this morning, before the story gets out, and then don't so much as stick your noses out the front door. You'll be up as soon as I think it's clear." Man, I thought New York was the only place you could mix up in a murder rap.